Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast presented by First Federal. It's Wednesday, September 28th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. It's been quite a while since both major college programs in Kansas have been good together, but that's where we are, at least through the first month of the season. Kansas State entered the top 25 poll this week after winning at Oklahoma on Saturday. The first team outside the poll, that's Kansas, which is off to a 4-0 start. The teams don't play each other until the final week of the regular season. Wouldn't it be fun if the fortunes continue and the stakes were high for that game? On today's show, we'll talk to the beat writers, Kellis Robinett, who covers the Wildcats, and Gary Bedore, who's been following the Jayhawks. We cover many topics with both reporters. Let's get started. Well, Kellis, you had an interesting game to cover last Saturday. That was I don't know if it was unexpected. I think people who follow Kansas State as closely as you do, and to a lesser extent, me and others, had a feeling that something could happen because we've seen it before.
Definitely. And I thought it was interesting leading up to the game. People asked me, Kellis, Kansas State's got no shot here, right? I was like, no, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, is it probable? Maybe not, because Oklahoma was looking really good, but look what's happened traditionally when Kansas State plays Oklahoma under Chris Klieman. They win. They won there. They won here in 2019. They won there in 2020. They barely lost here in 2021, and then they go down there and beat them this time. There's just something about playing the Sooners that brings the best out of Kansas State. And the only real criticism anybody had about Kansas State heading into that game was just the offense. The passing part of the offense was dismal. Adrian Martinez was not looking like himself for whatever reason. He wasn't throwing the ball downfield. He wasn't being aggressive. He just, for whatever reason, decided he was going to come in here and be this guy who never turns the ball over. He gives the ball to Deuce Vaughn. That was everybody's complaint. Quit doing that. Play like you did at Nebraska, sprinkling some highlight plays in there. And then all of a sudden Kansas State could be fine. And that's what happened. He went from Bruce Banner to the Hulk in this game, and it has almost 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, one of the best fourth quarter scrambles you'll ever see for 55 yards to ice the game. So kudos to him to dig deep down and find that, because that was the difference. Had the Martinez we'd seen in the first 3 games gone out there and played, they lose, and they lose badly. But he comes out and plays like that, they win. That's the difference. I wouldn't have I won't say I totally saw it coming, because I only picked Kansas State to cover the spread. I didn't have the stones to pick the win. But to say they had no chance, people maybe were reading a little bit too much into the Tulane loss.
Yeah, for sure. That 55-yard run, too, came on a 3rd and 16. That was pretty amazing. I don't know if that was the original play call, but Martinez saw it open up when he went back to pass. And
it was funny because it looked almost so effortless, maybe not effortless, but rehearsed. He decided so quickly to run. My first question to Chris Klieman after the game was that play a designed run? It's 3rd and 16. Let's Vince Young this. Drop back like we're going to pass, but then run. There's no way we're throwing the ball. They have said both after the game and then at his weekly press conference this week that play was most definitely supposed to be a pass. They had 4 receivers, all going vertical routes. Whoever can get open, let's throw beyond the sticks and hopefully get it. But yeah, Adrian said he got back. He knew kind of the guy he thought might get open. When he looked and saw he was covered, he looked and saw whoever was supposed to be spying in Oklahoma's defense just was out to lunch and said, well, I'm just going to run this. I mean, 2 seconds in, feels the pressure, takes off running. Great read by him, great run by him. And it is interesting. Brent Venables after the game said that they most definitely had a spy on Adrian Martinez in that play. But if you go back and look, there is no one near him. So miscommunication there, bad play by them, great play by Kansas State.
Yeah, if they had a spy on him, he was spying someone else, because Martinez made it. You're right. He made it look like a well-called design play, and and how about the fact that he slid to keep the clock rolling? Not to go out of bounds when the play was over. I thought, again, just an awareness on his part, and we just hadn't seen the best version of Adrian Martinez. You and I've talked about it a lot. We saw him make good plays, big plays at Nebraska, And those had been very few in the first 3 games, and especially against Tulane when they really needed it. He had a season's worth of big plays against the Sooners. It was for Kansas State fans, it just had to be fantastic to see. And I would say, just based on social media observations, that the demeanor of the K-State fan has changed in a week. But that is the nature of social media.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of social media. That's the nature of being a fan. The craziest thing to me about all this is that Adrian Martinez went into this game with what I would say maybe a third of the Kansas State fan base saying it's probably time to make a QB change, or at least think about one. After the game, he has better Heisman odds than Deuce Vaughn right now. Better than Vaughn. Unbelievable.
Who also had a good game, by the way.
Yes, he had a great game.
So, that's funny. All right, let's look ahead to Saturday's game against Texas Tech. I love that the teams that beat Oklahoma and Texas are now squaring off in a week. What are we at? Week 5, I guess, right? Week 5 of the season. Before we talk about the game itself, I loved that your story that about the game time, the 11 a.m. kick. This was not assigned by a network. This was Kansas State's choice to make it an 11 a.m. kick. How does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting. In today's age, most games are dictated by TV networks to maximize, the money you get from them. Basically, the Big 12 says, "Hey, ESPN and Fox, we'll let you choose the game times. You air them whenever you want, but you just give us more money for that control." And that is the case whenever a game is selected for traditional TV. But whenever it gets kicked down to ESPN Plus, Big 12 Now, whatever you want to call it, the home team gets to decide when it's played. And that was actually one of the reasons that, initially when some fans had some pushback against this, the university said, well, there is a benefit here. We can schedule the game whenever we want. It can be convenient to fans, convenient to us. You won't have games at just ridiculous times. Traditionally, 11 a.m. games are only scheduled for TV. So it was a little curious this time that they went that route. This is going to be the 3rd time they've been on the Plus this season. First one they played at 6 against South Dakota, which makes sense. You want to get your fan base there at 6 o'clock. The next one is against Tulane. I believe that was a 2 o'clock kick. Same deal. Middle of the afternoon game, a little bit diversity. This time they said, well, we had 2 picks for ourselves and our fan base. This time we'll let our football coach decide. And I think he very immediately said, I want this as a morning kickoff. Our team plays best in the morning. Look what we did against Missouri when they came in here. And basically the thought process behind that is that you're not waiting around the hotel all day to play. It's just wake up, go play football, then start focusing on the next game the next week. So this was once where the university, it's funny to think about this, but the university actually decided a kickoff time based on when it helps their team the most, not on when they can sell the most tickets or when it will be on TV. You don't see that very much anymore.
That is really interesting. And that happens in the Big 12 often because of Big 12 Plus, because of the streaming service that's prevalent in the Big 12. So I found that eye-opening when I read that. I knew that schools had the opportunity to choose the game times when they're on the streaming service, but the reasoning for that, I hadn't heard that. And look, that's kudos to Chris Kleiman for recognizing that his team seems to perform well earlier in the day, and yeah, I think fans have to give him this one and don't complain about 11 a.m. start. And for some fans, that's for those, especially those that have to drive. It means setting the alarm clock early in the morning. If you're coming from Kansas City, it's a 2-hour drive, and you want to avoid traffic, so you're leaving. You're leaving at 7 a.m., 8 7:30 or something. But then you're over. The day's finished. You go watch college football at the evening games when you play at 11. Okay, Texas Tech is the opponent. What a great victory for the Red Raiders last week. I got to listen to that game on satellite radio where I was, and quite exciting in Lubbock. So exciting, actually, that the fans stormed the field and the Big 12 reprimanded and fined Texas Tech. I think it was $50,000 for the post-game episode. But hey, the kind of the rationale I heard in Lubbock might be the last time Texas Tech ever plays in Lubbock. And you got to think about that in these games against Oklahoma and Texas. I thought about it after K-State won. That might be the last time K-State plays in Norman, and they would get out of there with a victory. So those are, like I said, considerations now when you play those teams as they're off to the SEC at some point. But Texas Tech 3-1. Their loss was to North Carolina State a couple of weeks ago. They didn't play well in that game, turned the ball over 4 times. But I think for the most part, it's been a pretty nice season for the Red Raiders, and their quarterback's playing really well. He wasn't the guy they expected to be the guy entering the season, right. Donovan Smith. But is he lead? Did I see this right? He's leading the Big 12 in passing, or he's up at near the top.
Yeah, in pure passing yards, I don't think it's per attempt, but in pure passing yards this season, he's the only Big 12 quarterback with 1,100 plus yards. So it's kind of incredible when the guy they were planning to start at quarterback went down. I thought they'd have problems, but they ran it up against the FCS team they played. They beat Houston in overtime. North Carolina State, like you said, not a very good effort by them, but hey, then you turn around and make up for it against Texas. I think there's a rule, regardless of how many times Texas is still going to come to your place. I think in Lubbock, the rule is you beat Texas, you have to storm you have to do something fine worthy after the game. I think back to when Texas Tech was hosting Texas in basketball last year, and it was the Chris Beard epic game. The whole arena was filled with hate. Oh my goodness. They do not like the Longhorns in Lubbock. So that does not surprise me one bit. But one quick story about listening to games on satellite radio. I did the same thing as you last week while I was driving to Norman. Caught pretty much all the KU game. I enjoyed that. And it was funny. I mentioned this because you were in Auburn for the epic Missouri meltdown. I didn't realize that was like going to overtime or whatever. So when I realized that was a close game, I was trying to find it, and I didn't catch it in time. By the time I finally found the station it was on, all I heard was the reaction of the poor Missouri radio people. Like seconds after the guy fumbled in the end zone, they're just in utter disbelief. Oh my goodness, we lost! Like, they were just no words. We lost. I can't believe this. We lost.
Yeah, I don't know how you call that. I don't know how you hide the total, chagrin of the way that loss first. The first words out of your mouth are what happened. It's the next words that you wonder, how do you explain to your fans, that your star kicker missed a 26-yarder that would have sent it, that would have won it. Instead, it goes to overtime. And then a running back, your best running back, fumbles without being touched as he's approaching the end zone that would have won the game in overtime. I've never seen a game end quite like that. And so you and I exchanged texts, and you reminded me of that. We're getting a little off track here, but I just thought it was such a great memory of yours, because I absolutely remember, because I even wrote about it later, that Baylor once lost a game. I think UNLV was the opponent when the Baylor coach, Kevin Steele, this was early in the Big 12 era. Kevin Steele was trying to make a statement. They already had the lead and they could have taken knees to end the game. But they're at the shadow of the goal line, and Kevin Steele wants to make a statement about how tough Baylor football is. Has his running back try to score on a short yardage situation. He fumbles, and UNLV returns the fumble 100 yards on the final play of the game to beat Baylor. And I can remember that was a late game, and so I didn't know about it that night. I didn't know about it until the next day. And that was the talk of college football the next day, the entire sport.
That's about the only thing I can compare that to, just having the game totally in your hand and literally fumbling it away. Those were both something.
I'll tell you what, and while we're on it, just the appreciation for satellite radio on days like that when you're driving. It's when you can't see it on television, satellite radio is a pretty cool thing, especially in a situation where, like it was with Texas and Texas Tech, the Texas broadcast, Craig Way and those guys were on one station and Texas Tech was on the next station. So I'm going back and forth depending on who had the ball, and then trying to get both after a big moment of the play. I really do appreciate Sirius XM on Saturdays when you're in a car driving around. So and for me, I'm driving back to Atlanta and I'm listening to to Stan and Wyatt. But I've got to see this. So I pull into a brew pub and get a sandwich and a frosty one and watch the second half of Oklahoma.
There you go.
Kansas State. It was a great way. Had all these other crappy games going on. Ohio State was crushing somebody. I can't remember, they were crushing all these other crappy games going on, but the whole bar really got interested in Oklahoma, Kansas State because of the way that ended. But all right, so let's talk a little bit more about Tech and what they could bring, and how what kind of threat is Texas Tech to K-State?
Well, this whole game is interesting to me because you could really call it the Hangover Bowl. You've got the teams that beat Texas and Oklahoma last week now trying to play each other. I would say probably you would think the team that would handle it better is Kansas State because A, they're at home, and B, they already kind of learned from beating Missouri and then showing up the next week and getting beat by Tulane. So you'd think they would realize don't overlook anybody. Texas Tech might not understand that yet, so we'll see. But I did like that their coach after the game had a speech where he wasn't talking up beating Texas. He was going out of his way to say, we're 1-0 in the Big 12. And if anybody wants to win this league, they got to go through Lubbock, which I've never heard that expression before. The Big 12 runs through Lubbock really in anything. So maybe they mean business. I don't know. But when you get into just the X's and O's, I think it's an interesting matchup because both teams kind of play into each other's disadvantage. Texas Tech is really good in run defense. They only allow 3.2 yards per run. So if they can bottle up Martinez and Vaughn, that's an issue. Could force Adrian to try to beat him with his arm. Flip side, Texas Tech really doesn't run the ball very much. They like to throw it. And this is another thing that interests me about this game is that Texas Tech traditionally is probably the fastest team in the country. They got 100 plays off last week against Texas, which is just crazy. 100 plays, wow. But Kansas State this year, normally when they've gone up against the Raiders, they see that and do the exact opposite and go super slow and grind the game down and try to frustrate them with these, 18 play drives. That's not what they're doing anymore. Colin Klein likes to speed up. I was shocked that even at Oklahoma in the fourth quarter of that game, when a lot of teams would be in clock killing mode, they were going up tempo, trying to score and keep a 2-possession lead on Oklahoma. So they're gonna, maybe not go pedal to the metal here, but they're gonna go faster than we've seen in the past. So could be a lot of points if Kansas State doesn't come up with turnovers. Like I said, if both teams are on their A games, it's going to be, I think it'll be entertaining. But if one team comes in and is hungover, then that's where you could maybe get a little separation.
Okay, what I heard there was Kellis says pound the over.
I say that, but we'll see. What is the over? 57.5? Yeah, that sounds all right.
Reasonable, right?
That's 75 last week in Norman, 75 points in Norman. So yeah.
31-27. I can see that score. Maybe 34-24, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, you talked me into it. There you go. Over. Good bet.
With Oklahoma and Texas losing last week, Kansas continuing to win, Tech with its league victory. The Big 12 standings after just everybody's either played one or no games in the Big 12. But I get, first of all, nobody's going 9-0 in the Big 12 this year. And I don't, with the losses now that Tech and OU have had, it'd be easier for OU to bounce back and get into the college football playoff. But we may not get that from the Big 12 this year, but we're going to have a heck of a season, it seems to me. With Kansas, obviously a changed team and a changed program. Tech, picked, I think, 8th or 9th with the ability to beat Texas. Even West Virginia, which lost at home to KU, comes back and stomps Virginia Tech and Blacksburg and takes on Texas this week. And they actually play Texas really well. We talk about how K-State matches up with Oklahoma. West Virginia's got kind of that thing with Texas going on too. So I don't know, Kellis. It's great when the Big 12 has a team in the national championship race. I'd like to see what it's going to be like going into weeks, 10, 11, 12 with, 6 teams vying for the top 2 spots.
Yeah, this league this year has the potential to have a lot of carnage, and the race to get into that championship game could be very interesting because, like you said, unlike years past, teams can't just look at KU and Texas Tech and say, that's pretty much a free win. You got to go out and earn it this year. So that jumbles the standings a little bit. Texas, without Quinn Ewers throwing like the former number one recruit in the country, and he's actually out right now. They're no juggernaut. Oklahoma, we saw last week. They're good, but a step away from great. And those teams have to play each other again. They've already got a loss, so one of them's going to have 2 losses. I think if anyone has a shot at the college football playoff this year in this conference, I think it's the winner of the Oklahoma State Baylor game this week. I think both those teams have the potential to do it. I think Oklahoma State a little bit better because they don't have a loss. Baylor already lost to BYU. They can get by that, but I think Oklahoma State with their offense and everything would have a better shot. And if you're really, really looking for a sleeper, TCU, they get Oklahoma at home this week. I'm not saying they will, if they win, they'd be looking with that offense, they'd have a shot to, maybe have just 1 loss. But again, we're rolling the dice on that one.
Right.
Those would be the teams I would say would have a prayer.
Well, we'll talk about it as the season continues. But who do you like in Oklahoma State Baylor? I think that's number 9 against number 16 this week. What do you?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I was impressed with Baylor winning at Ames last week. It wasn't easy. It was a 7-point game, but I just thought Baylor controlled it, and that's not easy to do in Ames.
Yeah, I was impressed with that too. I liked Iowa State in that spot. I didn't love Baylor's offense coming into the game, but they had things cooking. They moved across the 50 pretty much in every drive, took advantage of their scoring opportunities. I think they're maybe the most balanced team in the league. They've got a good defense. Their offense is catching up with it. Oklahoma State's kind of the opposite. They've got one of the worst defenses, but they've got the best offense maybe with Spencer Sanders coming back. It's a tricky one because Oklahoma State's coming off a bye. What did they do during that time? Did they break out anything tricky for Baylor? At the same time, Baylor, isn't this the game? I think Oklahoma State had like 7 turnovers against this team last season and lost. So, I don't know. I'd probably go Bears there.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. This is the opponent that Sanders had 7 of his 12 interceptions against last year. They played him twice, of course, in the Big 12 title game. So Sanders has not, or Baylor has played them well, and Baylor played really good great defense last week up in Ames. So I'm with you. I'm going with Baylor this week. So, all right, Kellis, I've taken way too much of your time. We got to get Gary Bedore on this show to talk some KU football. They're still playing pretty well. We'll see if that continues against Iowa State. So, all right, Kellis, we'll talk again next week.
You bet, Blair.
Buying your first home is a huge milestone, but the journey there can be confusing. First Federal Bank of Kansas City is here to make it simple. After nearly a century of serving the KC community, our loan advisors have experience in every type of housing market. With a short phone call, we can give you a free rate quote and talk through loan options. No pressure, no obligation. The road to home ownership can be simple with First Federal Bank. Get started with a free quote at ffbkc.com/homes. First Federal Bank of Kansas City, because banking is personal. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. All right, we're talking to Gary Bedore, who covers Kansas. And Gary, I was wondering this morning, since you cover men's basketball as well, when was the last time you covered a loss involving Kansas football or men's basketball?
I think it was the TCU basketball game was the last loss last year. That was the game where I think Ochai after the game told the guys they weren't going to fizz out. and they weren't gonna let it happen. So I think it was TCU.
Who knew Ochai meant football as well? You know?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I know Christian Brown went to the last game. I believe he's been on Twitter praising the football team. So those guys are now ready to hit the grind of the NBA season because all the camp teams are in camp now, I think.
yep. And KU basketball practice commenced.
Yeah.
So, but in any other year, we would switch sports immediately and talk about hoop prospects, but we're not doing that now. And for good reason, as Kansas went to 4-0 in football by beating Duke on Saturday. This one was a little different, wasn't it, Gary? Because in the previous two games, KU got down early at West Virginia, at Houston, and rallied back and to win both of those games. This one, they were the aggressor from the outset, weren't they?
Yes, and Duke kind of closed strong in this game. Actually had the ball down 8 with a chance to drive all the way downfield, score, get a 2-point conversion, and force overtime. But that didn't happen. They ran out of downs. KU's defense continues to be okay. They give up a lot of yardage and stuff, but like Leipold said yesterday, he thinks they're really physical, and I do too. But in this game, KU led fairly comfortably. They led by 15 with 4 minutes left, I think, and yet Duke really had the momentum at the end. But nobody remembers that. KU won, and the fans stormed the field, and they move on to the Iowa State game with an exciting win under their belt against Duke.
What did a full stadium look like? I haven't seen one since. Well, I haven't seen one with mostly KU fans.
Yeah.
Since 07, 08, one of those years. I have seen a full Memorial Stadium with Kansas State fans being the majority in there, and even Nebraska fans being the majority of fans. But it's been a long time since I've seen, a 40 close to 50,000. I think they call it 47 plus. And obviously Duke's not going to bring any, they're going to bring very many people to this. So it had to be all KU fans.
Yes, you called it. There were no Duke people there in that little section in the east south corner where they sit.
Yeah.
The visiting team. There was nobody there. I mean, it was full of KU fans. This full stadium was pretty different, but there were, for some reason, in the north end zone, there were a few empty seats. So I know they were all sold, but because of that, from our view in the press box, it didn't seem like, oh my gosh, this place has got so many people, like Allen Fieldhouse, where they squeezed together.
Yes.
For whatever reason, that little pocket of people in the end zone wasn't full. So it was great, and I'm sure KU's loving it, but it didn't seem like, oh, I've never seen this before. So I don't know why that was, but it was impressive because the people have always said KU will come out and support the team if they just are competitive. And I guess that's true. They're fired up, the people, and they're showing up. I would assume this week will be crowded, and that probably sold out, but I would think Iowa State definitely will have some fans for this one.
Absolutely. They're good fans, and we know they're great basketball fans, right? Because we see it at the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City every year. But I've been there for many football games as well, and it's I know we're off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think Iowa State fans are among the best in the country. The way they support their school through thick and thin, they even in down years, they're not happy with down years, but they show up, and I've always admired Iowa State fans. for that. I hope, with these large crowds in Lawerence, I'm hoping that it's not, Kansas certainly isn't used to this. So it's an adjustment, for school officials and for concessionaires, right? I mean, long lines at concession stands and for bathrooms, and it's just a different sense about going to a college football game in Lawerence. Parking, I've never had to think about worrying about traffic and parking over there, but these are all new, wonderful problems for KU.
Yes, and I don't know how the concessions handled it all, but probably if you were a smart fan, there's so many places to eat outside the stadium. They've got these trucks now and everything.
Yeah.
So I would take care of that before you go in. If you were a fan, go to one of those trucks surrounding the stadium, get some food there. And then, of course, the fans want their water, beer, some soft drinks, I would guess. And, I'm sure there's probably been some problems with that just because, like you said, they're not used to it. So it's so hot out there. I would really want to have a bottle of water next to me just in case of emergency. I mean, you never know when you're going to dehydrate up, because it was hot. The temperature was 11 a.m. start, but before the game, we were outside the stadium looking for basketball players, and it was hot out there.
Yeah. Just a sunny, warm day in the Midwest on Saturday. So, all right. So Iowa State comes to town, and they're coming in off of a home loss to Baylor, so they won't be in a good mood. They'll be pretty motivated and focused. And this will be the best defense Kansas has seen this year. I love the matchup because of this. What Jalon Daniels and the Kansas offense has done this year is amazing. Iowa State, though, that defense is for real. They lead the Big 12, right, in total defense. Yeah. And it's not because they're good in one or rushing or passing. They're good at both. They lead the Big 12 in both rushing defense and passing defense. So this is a pretty big test for Kansas.
Yeah. Iowa State beat Iowa, what was it, 10-7? So yeah. That's a good defensive game. And I think they only have given up 15 points a game or something. But the crazy thing about this game, to show you the difference in a year, last year in Ames, Iowa State pummeled KU. I think it was 59-7. And right now, Iowa State is only favored by 3 points, and nobody would be totally shocked if KU won. If KU does win, think of the difference 1 year makes from getting bludgeoned in Ames 59-7 to competing with them in Lawerence. It just shows how crazy Leipold's resurrection of the program is, and how the portal came at such a good time for KU, because they've added a handful of guys that are really good, or they're definitely Big 12 caliber, to go with these returnees who've been coached up, and not just coaching, the kids have done the weight room work and so much improvement, and Daniels turning into a real solid to great quarterback. So if Kansas beats Iowa State, I will be amazed at the difference in 1 year from blowout in Ames, where Lance Leipold admitted yesterday that it was a humbling trip to Ames, because he looked at the Iowa State players and said, that's a different kind of player. And he looked at their facilities and said, wow, these facilities are pretty amazing. So that was the humbling game. And Leipold said he'd like to have his program maybe emulate Iowa State a little bit. So we shall see if there's the major difference between last year and this year.
I saw those comments from Leipold, and I think that was interesting that he mentioned, he made a comparison of the facilities, and it's just a little thing, right? It's just, I think it's the first time I've heard him say something like that. And I think about it in this context, the Nebraska job is open, and
Yeah.
other jobs are going to come open, and Leipold is going to be, his name is already associated with Nebraska, and it's going to be associated with other programs as well.
Yeah.
And when he makes a comparison about facilities, doesn't that send the signal that, it's time for Kansas to invest even more money in facilities just to make sure he gets what he wants to keep him happy in Lawerence?
Yep. If he noticed Iowa State's facilities being that much better, Iowa State is known as having a great stadium, but I don't think theirs compares to Nebraska. Maybe it does now. I don't know. But definitely Kansas, I don't know where they're going to get all the money, but they're going to be announcing some kind of major project with the football stadium to add some, not just football over there. There's going to be like a convention center, maybe a new hotel or something. Basketball is going to get some more renovations. I think they're going to go to more chair backs and take out some bleachers and stuff, and then just fix the second level inside some more and some of the offices. Then you got the money that it's going to take to keep Leipold and his staff. If they go to a bowl game, it's not just Nebraska,
Yeah.
What about the other teams in the Midwest that want, if he goes to a bowl game and turns this thing around that quickly? Wow. So Kansas would have to improve not just the football stadium, but probably the office building there and the weight room there. So, and then NIL money, I heard they're getting a big donation that'll guarantee every football player that plays there, like schools are doing, it'll guarantee you like 35 or 40,000 just for playing football. So all that, maybe some boosters are coming out of the woodwork, but it's good. But in answer to your question, yes, it sounds like Leipold notices other schools' facilities, and Kansas is going to have to improve them even more.
Well, and now is the time to think about it, just because there's so much momentum and good feeling about the program, just because of what's happened this year, the end of last year, and going into this year. So we'll continue to monitor that and see what happens. So, all right, one last little question, Gary. Yes or no? If Kansas wins Saturday, do they enter the top 25?
Yeah, I would think so. They're only a few points behind K-State. So yeah, I would think so. And that'll be another wild thing. Leipold said yesterday, all the things you'd expect, he doesn't worry about that kind of stuff. But once again, it'll be another sign of his being a wizard master rebuilder if they're in the top 25 after 2-10 a year ago and all those years of misery.
Exactly. All right, Gary, really enjoyed it. We'll do it again next week.
All right, thanks.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Randy Mason, George Howard, and Jeff Rosen, and to our sponsor, First Federal. Their website is ffbkc.com. Hey, tip of the cap to Kellis, Robinett, and Gary Bedore for sharing their insights. Morning Sports Edition was 36 pages today. Read about all the local teams, the Chiefs, the Royals, Mizzou, K-State, KU, Sporting, the Current, plus national stories in the NFL, Major League Baseball, the U.S. men's soccer team, and much more. Go to liveedition.kansascity.com, liveedition.kansascity.com for more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.